Hey everyone, welcome to Post Mormon Peace. This is Jordan. I'm doing a first for me, which is just a solo episode. I just wanted to hop in, do a little quick idea of something that I've been thinking about that I've been using in my conversations with some of the members of the church and my family and my friends. It's been helpful for me, so I thought I'd maybe share it here. The idea that I've kind of loosely termed is called meeting in the middle. I'll start out with a little anecdote, a story. I had a friend who not so long ago we were talking about some politics, and he mentioned to me that he was in support of a candidate, not even like a local candidate or anyone that really mattered to me or nearby, but a pretty well-known person that I opposed and I really was not in favor of. So I was a little bit surprised when he told me about his support of this candidate. And as he started talking about why initially my brain started going into like go mode of, oh man, like I got to tell this guy all of this stuff that I know about this candidate and why he is not a good dude and why he should not support him, and on and on and on. And I caught myself in the moment kind of spinning up to defend my position. And I stopped myself and I just listened for a minute and he let him talk and kind of hear his point out. And he didn't really, in his initial comment, say why he was super excited about him, but just that he was happy that he'd won the election. And that's who he would have voted for if he lived there. And so at the end of his little intro, instead of doing what I normally do, which is, start citing facts and figures and blah, 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 defending my side of the opinion, all I did was I just asked him, what do you like about him? And what makes you feel connected to supporting him and his ideas? And I wasn't trying to trap him or I wasn't judging him or belittling in any way. I was just curious, just trying to see where he was coming from. And he talked about in his job, he works with people who are kind of in the margins, underprivileged. He works with a lot of low-income people and people who have tough family situations and are dealing with emotional and behavioral problems. And he talked about how this kind of a candidate and his policies and ideas would be very beneficial for the type of people that he works directly with. And he could see how, from a government standpoint, it could really benefit their lives. And I just listened to him talk for a little bit about some of the things he'd seen and some of the things that he thought this candidate meant to those types of people. And I immediately, my feeling towards him totally changed. Where I initially was thinking, oh, he's misguided, he didn't think about this or that, or he wasn't considering what I've considered on this particular subject. All of that kind of went away, and I connected emotionally to what he was saying, and I realized, this is why he's my friend. This dude is just a really good guy. He is incredibly altruistic. He thinks about people who maybe no one else thinks about, and he's looking out for the little guy. And he was supporting this candidate not even for his own self. He was supporting this for people that he cared about and he thought this would be beneficial for them. And so I reconnected with the value of why I liked this guy in the first place, because of some of his really beautiful characteristics as a human. And I would have missed that whole opportunity to realize what a good person this friend of mine is had I gone with my option A in defending my opinion and just going into what I thought was correct or what I thought was the right thing. And so that was a really cool experience for me. And that is an idea, I call it like meeting in the middle, where instead of we're all good at citing facts and figures, we're all good at knowing what our opinion is and defending our side of the opinion, especially when it comes to whichever side of the faith spectrum, leaving the church or staying in the church. I feel like we all have a very coherent argument for where we stand on that issue. But my point is, maybe that doesn't bring us any closer together if we're just arguing our counterpoints. But here's the thing. I find it easier to do this with politics than I do with religion. I know that's not true for everyone. For some people, religion or politics, they're really passionate about that, and maybe that's their trigger subject. But for me, and I think a few others, especially when it comes to those who've left the church, these religious topics, they can be a lot more complicated for me. I grew up in the church. I have so many good experiences. I have bad experiences. Family, my identity, all this stuff is tied up in this subject. And so I find it a lot easier to get triggered, emotional, and kind of not thinking very logically and relationship. I'm not centered on the relationship when it comes to these conversations. I'm more concerned about maybe being right than I am about connecting. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to prioritize when we're meeting in the middle with these conversations is I try to prioritize the relationship. When religious topics come up, I do find myself getting triggered way faster. So I'll try to bring that same curiosity that I had in that conversation with my friends. I try to bring that same curiosity with me in the religious conversations too. So I will ask, my mom's way into family history. And I remember, one of the things that does bother me, not just about my parents, but in general, I think the church asks a lot of their members in terms of time and finances. And my parents are very devout, and so they do give a lot of time and money to the church. And one of the things my mom does, which she's really passionate about, and I think she really actually does enjoy, but she does family history a lot, and she volunteers at the Family History Center. And I found myself, she was telling me one day about volunteering at the Family History Center, and I found myself getting annoyed internally. I didn't say anything to her about the fact that she spends so much time at the Family History Center. And I stopped myself and I realized what was happening, which was good. And then I asked my mom, what is it about the Family History Center that you like so much? And it was a very similar experience that I had with my friend earlier. She started talking about how it connects her to her own history and her family. And she got emotional as she told me that when she thinks about her family and her family history, it helps her remember who she is as a person and help her feel more confident and solid in the world. And I thought that was so cool. And I was able to see past maybe the religious aspects of it that I found annoying or triggering or whatever. And I was able to connect with my mom on something that was pretty foundational, I thought, was just your own personal identity, which who can't relate to wanting to connect with themselves and know who they are. And as a side note, like I do find my own family history very interesting. And I've shared it after I've left the church. I've shared a lot of our family history of our grandparents to my own kids because I think it's important to know, what your family is and what your family legacy is, and that your life is built upon the life of many other people. And so I was able to connect all of this with my mom, and I really think it brought us closer together. And maybe I wouldn't have had that moment or that extra connection with my mom had I chose to be triggered and start, maybe either shutting down or kind of moving on or ignoring that part of the conversation. I could have totally glossed over it just because I was getting annoyed. But instead, we had a moment of what I thought was cool connection. So kind of the idea here is, and one of the things I don't want to misconstrue is one of the things I often feel like I have to do is, as a person who's left the church, is bite my tongue and not say what I think. I don't want to gloss over that. I don't think it's necessary for us to hide our opinions or not say what we actually think. I don't think we should mitigate our speech. But I do think that we should prioritize the relationship over maybe being correct or having victory in some sort of a debate. But what I've learned is there are good places to have those conversations. And there are places to have those conversations that won't damage trust or decrease the amount of closeness you have with someone. And because you said something that, might be deeply personal to them that you disagree with. And I have a great group of friends now who have all left the church, and we do have problems with the church, and we do have problems on specific points of doctrine that do drive us a little crazy. And that is a great safe place to talk about those things and why they bother us. And I've learned that it's better to not have those conversations with the people who are still in the church. And letting go of trying to convince someone that, and this goes back to when you first leave the church, like you want people to know that you didn't leave for no reason. Like you had good reasons and you had logical reasons, and it was a well thought out process, and you just want people to know that there was a real reason that you left. And I think at some point you have to let go of that feeling, at least with the people who stay in the church. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear why you left the church. And furthermore, they don't want to hear your qualms and your grievances of the faith that they hold dear. And if you do need to air those things, I think that's totally fine. But maybe find the group who's receptive to that. And if you still want to maintain contact with your friends and loved ones inside the church, try not to prioritize those subjects when you're with them. And that's not to say you have to bury your head in the sand. When stuff has come up that's, maybe my parents will say something I do think is maybe a moral failing of the church that they agree with, I will very delicately try to state my opinion. But that I would say is the exception. It's not the most common thing. I think the most common thing is trying to find points of connection when there are differences, and trying to find those underlying values, the human values that we can all agree with. And that's kind of what this meeting in the middle is all about. So when you're having these conversations, bring your full truth. Everything that makes you you, everything that you believe, everything you have opinions about. I think you get to bring that to the table. And so do they. You don't have to shrink, but you don't have to overpower. You just want to be two people when you're having these conversations who are moving towards each other. And I think that's where the peace can lie, is we as human beings are trying to connect through our differences. If you guys liked or resonated with anything you heard today, we'd love to hear from you. Our email is postmormonpeace@gmail.com. If you have Instagram, you can reach out to us there. We read all the messages. If you have agreements, disagreements, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening.